Are you ready to drift into dreamland while exploring ancient history? Welcome to our calming corner, where we'll blend the intrigue of Roman history with the art of a good night's sleep. Today, we're unraveling why being a Roman prisoner of war was a total nightmare, perfectly boring enough to lull you to sleep. Before we dive in, hit that like button if you're ready for a restful nap, and tell us in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it there? Sweet dreams are just a play button away. Let's get cozy and start our journey through time. Imagine falling asleep in the comfort of your bed, only to wake up in a life totally stripped of freedom, to your life taken from you, yet still your own. As you lay comfortably in your bed, imagine how serene and safe your surroundings feel. The familiar rhythm of your everyday life forms a comforting backdrop as you drift off to sleep. But now, picture waking up to a world where every facet of your familiar life has transformed, your freedom has vanished, and you find yourself in disorienting captivity, at the mercy of cultures and people foreign to you. This unsettling scenario points us directly to the life of a Roman prisoner of war, POW, a fate often more harrowing than we might initially imagine. These individuals, once soldiers or citizens defending their own lands, suddenly faced a new reality where their future was governed by the very empire that had conquered them. The transition from knowing freedom to experiencing captivity was not only physical, but included a deep psychological transformation that wrestled with their identity and purpose. As we delve into this historical twilight, where individual destinies were dictated by wars beyond their control, we discover the harsh realities faced by those in Roman bondage, where life was not entirely lost, yet not wholly theirs to live. It's a tale of struggling beneath the weight of an empire's demands, yet sometimes finding unexpected opportunities for resilience and survival. In simple terms, to be a prisoner of war in the Roman era was to undergo a transformation from an independent entity to one bound by the chains of another's will. POWs were deprived of their freedom and autonomy, often forced into brutal lives where their survival depended on the whims and needs of their captors. The experience of captivity meant facing severe living conditions, where the comforts of the past and the familiar patterns of daily life were abruptly replaced with the harshness and uncertainty of servitude. Their previous identity and status were erased, replaced by the singular and defining label of captive. This existence was characterized by a loss of personal agency and a redefined place within the vast Roman Empire, often as slaves or forced laborers. The impact was deeply personal, yet part of a larger mechanism whereby the Roman state systematically utilized these individuals to shore up their economic and social structures. The captives became living resources, incorporated into the extensive Roman machine, a cog in the empire's mechanism, driven not by choice, but by necessity imposed upon them. This structured way of utilizing POWs reveals much about the Roman mindset towards power, control, and the economy of human life, offering insights into the complex layers beneath the empire's grand narrative. As the Roman legions marched victoriously across continents, the glories of their conquests were bittersweet spectrums of triumph and tragedy. The victorious Roman armies often brought with them an influx of prisoners, as defeat in battle rarely meant extermination for the conquered soldiers. Instead, these captives were absorbed into the Roman machine not as enemies, but as resources to be utilized to further the empire's sprawling needs. With every military triumph, the reach of the Roman Empire extended further, and with it, the number of prisoners who would now serve under its vast dominion. The fate of these warriors, once proud soldiers of now defeated forces, was sealed as they were distributed throughout the Roman Empire to serve under the weight of their captors' demands. This dispersal of captives was not random, but a carefully orchestrated strategy the prisoner judged and allocated based on skills, strength, or the sheer requirement for labour. Through their eyes, Rome was an unending chain of structures and fields, where they were nothing more than transient labourers. Once captured, the newly minted Roman POWs could be allocated into various roles. Many found themselves sold in bustling slave markets, their individual stories and origins lost to the anonymity of auctions. Here, they might end up pulling oars in galleys, labouring in mines or on farms, or serving in homes as household servants. These assignments were meted out with little regard for the individual, focusing instead on how best they could serve the Roman economy and infrastructure. The dynamics of these choices reveal the complex, often harsh reality of how the Romans integrated these captives into society. It was a robust system built on a clear hierarchy, with little room for personal stories or exceptions, where the loss of freedom translated directly into economic gain for those in positions of ownership or power. While some adapted to their new status, escaping complete despair by leveraging skills or knowledge they possessed, for many, this new life was an ongoing battle against dehumanization and hardship. The struggle was not just physical, but an enduring mental struggle to reconcile their past with an uncertain future, highlighting the resilience and adaptability of the human spirit amidst oppressive conditions. Among such bleak existence, there existed a complex hierarchy of treatment. The more fortunate captives, those with education, specialized skills, or influential networks, might be spared the harshest conditions. They could find roles as private tutors, secretaries, or advisors, especially if they could win over their Roman masters with their intellect or loyalty. In these rare cases, captivity offered a paradoxical sense of opportunity within the constraints of enslavement. Yet, these instances were exceptions rather than norms, with most POWs languishing under oppressive conditions that stripped them of former lives and freedoms. Those tasked with administrative or advisory roles often found themselves navigating the precarious balance between using their capabilities for some semblance of status while remaining ever cognizant of their enslaved condition. Such positions, closer to the epicenter of Roman governance and culture, expose the nuanced layers of captive integration, delicate dance of power, dependency, and the ever-present threat of regression to harsher roles should they fall out of favor. It was a system where every advantage came with risks, reflecting the intricacies of living under Rome's shadow. To illustrate, let's imagine two individuals captured during the same campaign. The first, a robust and resilient foot soldier, might be sent to toil away in the unforgiving expanse of a Roman farm. Here, endless fields stretch to the horizon, demanding relentless labour to reap the empire's rich agricultural output, feeding cities and armies alike. His days would be consumed by back-breaking work under the searing sun, every moment reminding him of the freedom he once wielded. His life, now narrowed down to labor and survival, would be a daily testament to the physical endurance required of those who worked knee-deep in soil, pushing against the earth to nourish an empire that had subdued him. The seasons might change, yet the nature of his toil remained cyclic and unending. The second captive, however, knows letters and number skills in languages and literature. His capture might pivot his fate towards a different angle, where he could find himself in the study of a Roman noble's villa, teaching the children of his master. This relative comfort may seem a blessing compared to the fields, but it comes with its own chains, constantly reminding him of the borrowed time he lives, defined by the needs and moods of his captors. Under the roof of wealth, education becomes both his offering and his lifeline, sowing intellect where others sow grain, yet both bounded to their respective fields by circumstance. Thus, for these individuals, the path of their lives under Roman control reflected vastly different experiences of captivity, each a small brushstroke in the broader canvas of Roman power history. This exploration is about more than uncovering the past. Understanding the nuances and systems of Roman captivity reveals critical insights into the fundamental attitudes towards power, control, and humanity that echoed through Roman society. The way the Romans utilized their POWs speaks volumes about the mechanisms of control in place where every prisoner represented a conquest and a commodity. This reflection mirrors in today's society, echoing within the global discussions of power dynamics, the value of individual human rights, and how past shadows influence the contemporary cultural and legal landscape. As we dissect these ancient practices, we are reminded that the echoes of history resonate within the corridors of modernity, urging us to re-evaluate questions about freedom, agency, and the morality of power structures. The Roman approach to managing POWs underscores enduring themes that continue to challenge and define human interactions and legislative frameworks around the globe. A remarkable paradox surfaces when considering that some POWs found unexpected pathways to influence and opportunity while in captivity. For example, highly educated captives or those possessing rare skills sometimes garnered favor from their Roman masters, leading to unique roles that offered them a respite from the harshness of common slave labor. This dimension of captivity led to intricate relationships between captor and captive, where mutual dependence could blossom into something resembling friendship or respect within the confines of bondage. A delicate balance was struck between utility and humanity, reflecting the complex social dynamics inherent within Roman society. These complex dynamics fostered environments where loyalty, albeit enforced, occasionally opened the door to limited forms of agency and autonomy, tempting the captives with fleeting glimpses of significance within the Roman order. In terms of application, recognizing the lasting influence of historical captivity requires us to look both inwards and outwards. We can identify the echoes of Roman captivity in modern stories of disparity, where people find themselves grasped by societal systems that minimize individual agency, whether through circumstances of war, immigration, economic disparity, or social inequality. These narratives resonate with today's global issues, such as human trafficking, forced labor, and the ongoing debates over prisoners' rights and refugee statuses. Through recognizing these patterns, we foster a more empathetic and informed perspective that considers the historical depth of these struggles, challenging us to confront and change the systemic and often subconscious constraints that persist in modern societies. Understanding the history of captivity permits a broader view of the underlying currents shaping human rights discourse today, inviting us to uphold and defend the freedoms so hard won over centuries. As we reflect on the twilight world of Roman captivity, we find ourselves standing at the intersection of civilization's grandeur and the individual human tragedies it often obscures. The triumph of Rome was built upon countless personal stories of loss, resilience, and adaptation, each one contributing to the empire's formidable legacy, yet often lost in the shadow of its grandeur. Through understanding the lives and fates of Roman powers, we witness the paradox of human glory intertwined with profound suffering, encouraging us to contemplate how today's societal achievements might also be intertwined with unseen personal tragedies. As you drift into sleep, consider the stories yet untold and the depths of resilience residing within human history, reflection that binds us across time to the past and its evergreen lessons for humanity. Take a moment to reflect on this, and let the story of those who lived in the twilight guide your thoughts as you ease into a restful slumber. Imagine a game of chess where each piece represents more than just a tool for strategy. Imagine each move determining the fate not only of the board, but holding the weight of lives in its balance, transforming victories into bleak realities for the other side. This is akin to the Roman approach to warfare. Every triumphant battle was both a strategic accomplishment and a grim reconfiguration of individual destinies. Roman warfare operated under strict rules where losing often meant a lifetime of servitude. The Romans were meticulous strategists with a clear understanding of warfare as a crucial mechanism for expanding their empire, which often left their enemies not dead, but captured and repurposed. The system of warfare that the Romans employed was a calculated interplay of military might and a keen strategic mind, one that was as much about winning battles as it was about managing the consequences of those victories. A Roman victory was not just about territorial expansion, but about acquiring human resources to fuel their ever-growing empire. To fully understand the fate of captured soldiers, we must first appreciate the sheer effectiveness of the Roman military machine. The Roman legions were famously disciplined, with soldiers trained to execute complex maneuvers with precision and cohesion. This discipline allowed them to engage and defeat larger forces, effectively turning potential defeats into decisive victories. The Romans were masters of adaptation, frequently learning from their adversaries and integrating new tactics, weapons, and technologies. The rigorous training and hierarchical structure of Roman legions were key components that facilitated both the conquest of territories and the systematic requisition of human capital. The Roman way of war was not merely about annihilating the opponent, but forcing surrender and thereby gaining access to a new pool of captives. These vanquished foes, now prisoners, were seen as valuable assets, potential farmers, builders, artisans, or even soldiers within the ranks of auxiliary troops. As such, the warriors who once stood on the opposing side soon found themselves enveloped into the fabric of Roman civilization, their roles transformed with the abruptness of battle's end. The aftermath of warfare brought about an organized process of processing prisoners. Captives were categorized according to their potential usefulness, with their new roles dictated by skills, previous status, and the needs of their Roman captors. Some captives were selected for military service. Their knowledge and experience were rechanneled into auxiliary units that supported the Roman legions, allowing the empire to economize on local resources. This practice effectively bolstered Roman forces with diverse tactics and insights gained from a myriad of conquered peoples, enhancing their adaptability and resilience in varied theatres of war. Such soldiers occupied a dual existence, still captives, yet equipped with a degree of camaraderie among their Roman counterparts, integrated through shared purpose rather than chains. Other captives were employed in infrastructure projects critical to the maintenance and expansion of Roman infrastructure. From constructing roads to building aqueducts, the labor extracted from prisoners of war fueled the relentless development of the empire's legendary engineering feats. The construction tasks these captives undertook were essential to ensuring ongoing Roman dominion, knitting conquered lands together with roads and aqueducts. These physical markers of the Roman presence served as both symbols of imperial proficiency and constant reminders of the ruler's extensive reach. For those whose skills were aligned with artistic or intellectual pursuits, captivity offered alternate forms of integration within Roman society. Individuals with education or exceptional crafting skills could find themselves serving Roman elites, producing works of art, literature, or advising on matters of culture or science. Sometimes these captives even managed to carve out positions of respect, their talents elevating them to roles that afforded a semblance of autonomy and influence. Yet this apparent comfort masked a deeper ambiguity, as these individuals remained captives regardless of their momentary value to their Roman overseers. Their integration into the cultural fabric of Rome was a complex dance, dictated by their ability to navigate the expectations and constraints of their captors. This pathway of indirect influence was fraught with its own tensions, as captivity conflicted with the intellectual and creative freedom required for true expression of their talents. The integration of captives into roles of this nature underlines the pragmatic Roman approach, valuing efficacy and adaptability, often allowing captives to contribute their expertise while remaining subjected to overarching control. The significance of Roman war and captivity systems resonates far beyond their immediate historical context. Understanding these aspects of Roman military and social strategy sheds light on the cultural importance the Romans placed on power, control, and expansion. They provide a critical lens to evaluate not just the operation of one of history's greatest empires, but also the ongoing human dynamic of power exerted through subjugation. Reflecting on these dynamics allows us to delve deeper into the ways societies exploit conflict and advantage, whether consciously or not in modern contexts. The practice of repurposing captives threw into sharp relief the paradox of Roman civilization, a lasting legacy of refinement and technological advancement shadowed by systems of subjugation and exploitation. This tension speaks to a broader paradox at the heart of civilization itself, how advancements and achievements often rest upon underlying structures of inequality or exploitation. The Romans, despite their reputation as one of the ancient world's most advanced civilizations, held fast to practices that starkly highlight the contradictions inherent within their society. The harsh reality of the Roman way, which saw prisoners as both spoils and instruments of statecraft, poses thought-provoking questions when considered through a modern lens. At what point does the pursuit of power overwhelm the foundational tenets of humanity and ethics? What are the costs, both visible and invisible, of our current societal triumphs when power, governance, and economy interplay beneath the surface? As we gaze back at the Roman strategy of war, the lessons to be learned to find renewed relevance in today's global stage where questions of ethics, human rights, and international law continue to grapple with the delicate balances of power laid bare by history. Reflect and consider how the echoes of Rome's war machine, still present in the frameworks of contemporary military and international discourse, challenge us to break cycles of history and build a world where triumph does not come at such a heavy cost. Take a moment to reflect on this. Consider the lives transformed irreversibly by conquest, and how this continues to form ripples in our world today. Contemplation and understanding today carve pathways for a more empathetic tomorrow. Imagine your neighborhood suddenly restructured, with former adversaries now residing in close proximity. The once familiar social fabric reshapes itself overnight, adjusting to the influx of new faces, many of whom were adversaries just yesterday. This kind of societal transformation is reflective of Rome during its imperial expansions, when it absorbed a multitude of cultures, people, and enemies directly into its social framework. The inclusion of prisoners of war wasn't just a matter of manpower for economic pursuits, it was a vehicle for profound social change, complex integration, and sometimes cultural tension and recalibration. The arrival of these captives in Roman lands prompted a remarkable social reorganization, demanding adjustments not only in the personal lives of the captives and their captors, but also within the larger societal constructs. The Roman society, which prided itself on order and hierarchy, suddenly found itself recalibrating its identity in the face of integrating diverse peoples, compelled to reconcile an ideal of civilization with the realities of managing such widespread and varied human resources. It was a dynamic interplay having the power to assimilate these individuals, offered both enrichment in terms of diversity and potential conflict as different customs and traditions clashed. Incorporating prisoners of war into Rome invited a unique perspective on the empire's social mechanics. These captives were brought in as slaves or laborers, with their roles cut across diverse layers of the existing social order. For some, life in Rome meant laborious daily rhythms on vast agricultural estates, tending crops that fed the city and its armies, or working within urban settings as household servants, craftsmen, or builders. This influx altered social relations and statuses within communities, as local labourers and smallholders competed with captive labour or interacted with them daily. A simple tiller of fields might suddenly find himself working alongside someone who had once worn mail and helmet, and a craftsman might exchange design hints with a captive from a distant land. Families that acquired captives to work in their homes or on their land would similarly adapt, absorbing these workers into their domains where shared lives, stories, and spaces emerged amid the tension of ownership and subservience. Slowly, a multifaceted society emerged, one where the boundaries of Roman identity were continually negotiated through daily lives shared between citizens and the men and women who had once been enemies. There existed an irony to integration into Roman society. Theirs was a civilization celebrated for its law, infrastructure, and cultural achievements. Yet for many, entry into this world as a captive was a mark of loss and servitude. The distribution of captives often followed pragmatic assessments, with skilled labourers given particular roles based on their expertise, reinforcing certain hierarchies. Educated captives could find themselves in advantageous positions, serving as teachers or tutors, obtaining tasks that align them more comfortably with their Roman counterparts. Yet, these placements were not devoid of tension, often reflecting a social and cultural undercurrent, fraught with attempts to assert old identities within a foreign social structure. Captives who were skilled artisans might leave behind tangible legacies, shimmering mosaics, or expertly crafted wares that told unwritten stories of their native cultures through the medium of Roman tastes. And in cities and towns throughout the empire, the daily dance of Roman and foreign customs built layers of shared experiences woven from the complexities of adaptation, resistance, and survival. As much as Rome sought to impart its culture upon these new inhabitants, the reciprocation often meant Rome itself was likewise transformed, sometimes subtly and sometimes profoundly, through these interactions. The significance of incorporating former adversaries into society reaches beyond simple economic benefit. It highlighted Rome as a society of conquerors who, despite their emphasis on assimilation, had to manage a delicate balance between unity and division. This, in turn, mirrored a larger philosophical and practical debate about identity, governance, and the nature of citizenship. For captured individuals, serving the Roma way often forced them to adopt Roman legal and cultural norms as adaptive strategies for survival within a deeply stratified system. But this adoption by no means erased their pasts. They carried stories, rites, and memories from their own cultures that, when combined over generations, infused Roman society with diverse influences. Temporary labels of captor and captive could, over time, evolve into legitimate relationships marked by mutual benefit, contingent on navigating the prejudices and inequities inherent in such stratification. While many captives remained markedly separate from Roman society, some saw their families already beginning to embed within Roman lines due to marriages or the eventual granting of limited rights through service. The continuing assimilation of captives thus mattered greatly to Rome. It underscored the empire's ability to maintain control over vast and variable territories through the process of making conquered peoples Roman subjects. Yet, encapsulated within this process was also a degree of flexibility that allowed for subtle exchanges. Captives, though rendered voiceless by servitude, would indirectly influence Roman norms and practices, particularly within local milieus, where their labour and talent reached and enriched facets of daily life. This mingling, while involving layers of coercion, ultimately exposed Roman society to a diversity of artistic expressions, dialects, and traditions, allowing its culture to reflect a hybrid vigour. Within the framework of assimilation lay a series of paradoxes, as the Roman Empire sought both to impose its order and to find growth through the diversity it absorbed. Identity, previously monolithic and clear-cut, now became softened by layers of intermingled lives, revealing both the strength and fragility of the Roman order. Contemplating the Roman approach to social integration offers a reflective lens for our modern world, where issues of immigration, cultural diversity, and integration remain central to contemporary discourse. The parallels between ancient Rome's methods and today's societal challenges reveal habitually recurring themes of inclusion and exclusion, of building societies that must choose either to embrace or reject diversity within their midst. This ancient empire's struggle, thriving amidst multiplicity, challenges us to consider the lessons of our own approaches to integration, empathy, and the negotiation of identity. Whether through accepting the diversity that enriches or the biases that divide, the Roman experience provides a narrative of unity brought about by necessity and adaptation, resonating deeply with those addressing these issues today. As we pause and reflect on how entire societies recalibrated and forged new identities from their interactions with the other, we are prompted to consider our paths within communities and on a global scale create inclusive societies. Take a moment to reflect on these patterns of life and history that transform each of us, just as they did those who walked the roads of Rome, for in recognizing these evolving identities, we find the potential for growth and understanding that has forever guided human progress. Imagine waking up to find your life choices now dictated by another. The freedom to decide your own fate has been replaced by an unfamiliar authority, altering every step you take and choice you make. This stark contrast between autonomy and subjugation has long intrigued philosophers and historians alike. In the Roman world, the concept of freedom wasn't merely a philosophical or political ideal, but a tangible part of daily existence that could be abruptly transformed by the outcomes of warfare. For prisoners of war, the transition from freedom to captivity was immediate and often permanent, symbolizing a stark shift in identity and agency. Captivity in ancient Rome fundamentally reshaped what it meant to be free, as captured individuals were confronted with the bare essence of human liberty stripped away and replaced by imposed constraints. The lines between what defined a free man and a captive could be seen as a reflection of the broader philosophical debates that continue to resonate today, such as the extents and limits of personal autonomy, the nature of power, and the relationship between individual rights and societal obligations. These themes intersect within the lives of Roman POWs, transforming abstract philosophical inquiries into lived realities of confinement and control. For the Romans, who prided themselves on their civilization's ideals of law, order, and citizenry, the concept of freedom was deeply intertwined with social status and legal rights. Roman society was heavily stratified. Citizens enjoyed certain privileges and participated actively in public life, while slaves and captives were bound to roles predetermined by others. Being a Roman citizen came with protections and benefits reflecting a societal hierarchy that supported the empire's structure. Conversely, for those stripped of such privileges, either through birth or capture, life became a series of dictated choices. Their autonomy surrendered to the demands and expectations of their Roman masters. This dichotomy of freedom and captivity within a single empire illustrates a complex philosophical landscape in which freedom isn't merely a state of being, but a negotiable, sometimes elusive, construct shaped by power, law, and societal norms. For Roman POWs undergoing this transformation, life became an exercise in navigating the boundaries between enforced servitude and personal dignity. The sudden imposition of captivity meant adapting to a new set of restrictions that controlled their movements, labor, and even personal relationships. The philosophical implications of this transition are profound. How does one reshape their identity when external forces redefine the essence of personal choice and freedom? The question of what it means to be free becomes even more pressing in such conditions, as captives sought to preserve some semblance of agency within a system designed to suppress and exploit. This struggle is a testament to the human spirit's resilience and adaptability, as individuals found ways, sometimes subtle, sometimes overto, assert their presence and influence despite their constrained circumstances. Whether through small acts of resistance, building covert networks of support, or seeking personal achievements within the roles assigned to them, these captives continually negotiated the terms of their existence. Within this framework, the experiences of Roman POWs serve as a lens through which we can explore broader philosophical debates regarding freedom and control. This juxtaposition raises important questions about the nature of liberty and the role of societal structures in shaping individual identity. It's a timeless dialogue, one that confronts the intricate dance between power and liberty, where personal freedom confronts institutional frameworks. While Roman captives navigated this dynamic within the confines of their historical context, similar challenges persist today in societal structures worldwide, echoing through matters of governance, justice, and human rights. The ongoing search for freedom, whether physical, political, or spiritualis, one of humanity's most enduring quests, reflecting our intrinsic desire for autonomy in defining the path of our own lives. The Roman structure of captivity starkly contrasts with our notions of freedom today, yet it underscores the fragile nature of liberty itself. Places where freedom could flourish were often surrounded by boundaries of varying severity, determined by status, wealth, and political power. The lives of captives defined by these constraints exemplified the philosophical tensions inherent in discussions of what it means to be free. Their existence was poignantly emblematic of the paradoxes of freedom, as some experienced complete autonomy within societal walls, others navigated their lives within the frameworks of captivity and control. Roman society, with all its might and order, thus highlighted the eternal quandary of balancing individual rights against collective imperatives and inquiry, echoing into modern philosophical and legal debates. It is within this exploration of freedom and captivity that we encounter the greater moral implications that come from accepting or rejecting systems of control. Romans themselves provided much of their philosophical and literary output that questioned these dynamics, creating a cultural dialogue that remains deeply relevant. From the writings of Stoic philosophers who examine notions of internal freedom achievable despite external constraints, to legal treatises that articulated the fine distinctions between free individuals and those enslaved or captive, these works invite readers to ponder the foundational morality that governs such distinctions. In debating freedom's nature, the human condition comes to the forefront, with its innate yearning for autonomy juxtaposed against the intricate webs of dependence civilization demands. These timeless considerations of freedom exercised versus freedom denied invite us to look at contemporary contexts where the echoes of Rome's philosophical battles resonate once more. From debates over incarceration and rehabilitation in justice systems, to conversations about autonomy in an age increasingly dictated by technology and connectivity, the intersections of freedom, control, and societal obligation continue to shape our global landscape. We find that the definitions and constraints of freedom have evolved, yet the fundamental need to understand and balance them remains vital. By reflecting on the narrative of captive lives under Rome, we engage with the broader dialogue that continues to shape every society, a discourse on choice, on meaning amidst regulation, and on the complex paths of liberty. Take a moment to reflect on this. Consider the layers of freedom that define your daily life, and how they might manifest had you lived in an ancient society guided by a different set of rules. As you gently drift into sleep, let this meditation on freedom and captivity echo within you, nurturing a deeper understanding of the values and freedoms shaping our shared human journey. Imagine a bustling world where the economic gears run on human lives, every element of society interconnected in a vast chain. In the Roman Empire, this chain was both literal and metaphorical, with slavery and forced labor forming the backbone of Rome's economic might. Roman economics thrived on slave labor, magnifying empire, wealth, and power, and in the midst of this sat the Roman prisoners of war, often turned slaves, as they became part of the machinery that propelled Rome to greatness. The economic system of Rome was as expansive as it was exploitative, strategically designed to harness the productive capacity of its vast populace, with captives deemed an essential component of this clockwork. With wars waged in distant lands, a byproduct was not only territorial gain, but also the acquisition of human capital. The victors returned, not just with stories of triumph, but also with countless captured souls who would be integrated into the empire's economy. These POWs, stripped from their former lives, became the workforce behind agricultural outputs, the labourers in mines extracting precious resources, and the artisans contributing to Rome's renowned architectural feats. The Roman economy, renowned for its complexity and reach, heavily relied on this influx of labour to maintain and expand its indomitable empire. Here, prisoners of war found themselves thrust into various sectors depending on their skills or simply the demand at the time. Some were sent to sprawling agricultural estates known as latifundia, which were the agricultural hubs of Rome, feeding its populace and armies alike. Here, these captives would work under harsh conditions, with little regard for their previous status or capabilities. The vast fields demanded endless toil under the blazing sun, a relentless pursuit of productivity. For others, the fate was the mines, delving into the earth for Rome's insatiable hunger for metals and resources crucial for coinage, weaponry, and trade. The mines were places of peril, where labour was extreme and life expectancy was brutally short. These captivated souls endured the bleak existence, their labour intensifying the wealth that lined the coffers of Roman elites. In urban areas, POWs found themselves as craftsmen or in construction, building the infrastructure that epitomized Roman engineering prowess. Roads, aqueducts, and monumental architecture stood as testaments to Roman ingenuity, each stone and column a silent narrative of captive labor. With their skills co-opted into the Roman economy, these individuals contributed to architectural legacies that outlasted their own tumultuous lives. The story did not end in anonymity for all. Skilled artisans and educated captives sometimes found niches within society where their talents were recognized, offering marginally improved conditions compared to their counterparts. These units of skilled labor could achieve certain levels of integration, with some captives rising to supervisory roles over others, especially when their expertise fostered innovations that could be capitalized upon by their owners. Yet for every story of such fortunate turns, countless others were swallowed by the grueling demands of Roman economic machinations, their identities lost to the tide of history. The economic architecture built on such a labor foundation was not without tension. It heightened social hierarchies and widened the gap between the wealthy and the struggling masses. The economic system underscored glaring inequalities. Captives served as both symbols of the empire's reach and reminders of its moral contradictions. With wealth and power concentrated among the elite, the dependence on slave labor to sustain it exposed the vulnerabilities within Roman society. While the elite reaped prosperity, the system also bred resentment and marginalization in the lower classes, who competed not only for resources but also for employment opportunities, sometimes directly with enslaved captives. Such discord sowed seeds of instability that would challenge Rome's longevity, creating fractures that economic reliance alone could neither mend nor mask. The practice of enslaving POWs and relying on their labor resonated through history, illuminating human truths and fueling debates across the ages. It is from these origins we trace the threads of labor practices, ethics, and economics that inform modern discourse, questioning how past systems of exploitation have shaped contemporary values and societal structures. Understanding the Roman economy and its dependence on captive labor provides a mirror reflecting today's conversations around labor rights and economic inequality. The parallels persist in how societies grapple with issues of migration, workforce integration, and the moral implications of economic growth at the expense of human dignity. These conversations challenge us to reconsider the very foundations of our economic models. Can prosperity coexist with ethical labor practices? What lessons can be drawn from an empire that thrived on the backs of the conquered, and how might we forge more equitable systems? The legacy of employing captive labor, echoing through centuries, interrogates the balance between economic aspiration and ethical consideration. In the vast narrative of human progress, the story of Roman POWs is but a single chapter, yet it encapsulates broader themes of control, economy, and human resilienza, narrative alive within modern contexts. By examining these ancient systemic structures, we engage with essential reflections on justice, equity, and the societal contract. With each analysis, from historical retrospectives to present realities, the ongoing dialogue challenges the status quo and invites us to envisage a future where economic vitality is not shadowed by exploitation. In acknowledging the profound impact of these historical dynamics, we find opportunities to reshape narratives, striving for systems where human rights are foundational rather than peripheral, ensuring that progress honors each individual's contribution, free from coercion. Take a moment to reflect on this. Visualize the stories embedded in the stones of ancient constructions, where echoes of those who built them resound through time. As these reflections settle, consider the frameworks of today that continue to shape our economic environments. Relax into these thoughts, allowing them to weave understanding and compassion as you transition into a peaceful sleep, where dreams explore the boundless potential for a future crafted by equitable minds and open hearts. Imagine endless days of toil, with no rest or relief in sight. A monotonous cycle where each rising sun heralds another grueling chapter of labour. Such were the harsh realities of prison labour for Roman prisoners of war, who found themselves trapped in a relentless existence defined by the demands of their captors. These individuals, once soldiers and defenders of their homelands, were reduced to instruments of work within the expansive Roman Empyrean Empire that thrived off the back-breaking effort of those it had subjugated. The approach to labour was systemic and unforgiving, with expectations driven by the sheer scale of Rome's territorial and industrial ambitions. Forced labour became an everyday punishment, not merely a repercussion of captivity, but a cornerstone of economic power, as the state transformed human suffering into territorial development, monuments, and infrastructure crucial to sustaining its grandeur. Within this framework, prisoners of war became primary players, their fate sealed into the fabric of empire-building strategies that traded human dignity for economic prowess. The logistical network tying Rome's sprawling domains together was vast, encompassing agricultural enterprises, mining operations, construction projects, and domestic capacities, all sectors where POW labour was intensively utilised. In agriculture, these captives laboured on expansive estates, where their days were consumed with planting, tending, and harvesting crops that fed not only the citizenry, but also soldiers on the front lines, far from home. Such fields were relentless in their demands. The seasonal cycles provided the rhythm to which these workers toiled, subjected to the whims of nature and the expectations of production quotas without respite. The hardship of labour, compounded by long hours under harsh conditions, chipped away at their health and spirits with minimal reward for their tireless exertions beyond the mere continuation of life. Mines presented an even harsher reality. Here, conditions were brutal and dangerous, with labour involving grueling physical demands exacerbated by the oppressive environments of the underground passages. Air was scarce, safety precarious, and oversight ruthless, as captives extracted ores and minerals vital to Rome's economic interests. The fate of those assigned to construction work, however, offers a somewhat paradoxical narrative. These labourers worked on grand public works projects that symbolised Rome's enduring legacy, its roads, aqueducts, temples, and amphitheatres. Each stone laid was a testament to their imposed labour and simultaneously a marker of humanity's architectural achievement. Though their bodies were bound by chains to their tasks, their contributions materialized in structures that stood for centuries, serving as silent witnesses to the duality of beauty and suffering contained within the empire's great accomplishments. Despite the exhaustive demands of their work, some captives managed the grim heroism of endurance, channeling inner resilience into their roles. Upon facing consistent adversities, they evolved strategies and developed techniques that secured marginally safer or more efficient processes. Sometimes, this adaptation allowed for brief breaks from the intensities of servitude. Their experience, though mired in hardship, cultivated unexpected pockets of community and shared perseverance. The psychological impact of enduring perpetual labor in captivity took a toll on individuals' mental well-being. Integration into a foreign culture's labor systems also heralded complex identity reshaping, where personal agency confronted systemic coercion. This led captives to adopt defensive psychological tactics to navigate this enduring torment, some choosing to cling tightly to memories of freedom that for them became personal embers of hope amid desolation. Others might find solace or temporary escape in rituals of cultural significance, finding sanctuary in the internal rather than external world. This mental resilience echoed across populations of captives who, amidst labor, evolved into a kind of oppositional community united by shared circumstances and dreams of autonomy. Amidst the grind of enforced occupation, they preserved fragments of their former identities, threading them quietly amongst fateful encounters that the labor arena failed to erase. The grueling realities of Roman prison labor hold significance beyond mere historical curiosity. They extend lessons that resonate in contemporary conversations about determination, dignity, and human rights. These timeless stories urge modern thinkers to critically assess the dynamics of labor systems and the ethical discourse surrounding them. They remind us of the haunting persistence of labor inequality and the moral obligations we bear to forge systems that respect and elevate human dignity. As we draw parallels to present-day narratives of labor exploitation and forced work in its various forms, the shadows of Rome's subjugated laborers cry for acknowledgement and justice. From factories and fields that proliferate across emerging economies to the nuanced complexities of developed markets, the echoes of history whisper cautionary tales that challenge us to reshape economic landscapes purposefully and ethically. In acknowledging the past's failures, we are spurred toward envisioning work environments that protect individual rights while championing fair compensations and labor conditions. This vigilance and advocacy forge an increasingly inclusive societal ethos that seeks not only prosperity, but also a commitment to humane engagement and equitable growth for all its participants. Reflecting on these components encourages us continually to reevaluate our systems, ensuring they are unshackling rather than diminishing. By honoring those whose involuntary labor built empires, we insist on a legacy that propels justice forward, crafting a narrative unburdened by the weights of inequality. Take a moment to reflect on this. Envision the legacy of structures built on the labor of the unwilling, and how they whisper stories of endurance through time. As we pause to honor those individuals with reflections that demand ethical vision, gently transition into a state of restfulness, where dreams seed hope's potential and invite the dawn of a fairer future. Imagine immersing yourself in unfamiliar waters, slowly transforming within their depths, adjusting to strange currents and new realities. This is akin to the cultural journey that Roman prisoners of war faced as they found themselves plunged into the vast and intricate society of ancient Rome. For these captives, life beyond captivity meant not only adapting to the external conditions imposed by their conquerors, but also facing the more profound challenge of cultural assimilation or erasure. This dual pathway posed both an opportunity for integration into Roman society and a potential loss of their original identities and customs. Captives arrived as part of the empire's spoils, an infusion of diversity that would test their ability to navigate across social and cultural boundaries. For some, it was an introduction to the sophisticated mechanisms within Roman society, allowing them to become contributors to the economic, intellectual, and civic life within the empire. Yet, for many others, their unique heritages risked being overwritten by the dominant Roman way of life, the nuances of their languages, traditions, and beliefs submerged under the unifying crest of imperial culture, shaped by conquest, control, and expanded dominion. The Roman authorities encouraged assimilation, understanding that stability within their vast territories relied significantly on cultural integration. The blending of captives into society allowed Rome to strengthen its hold on conquered peoples by minimizing rebellion risks and integrating new energies and talents into its economy and culture. Many captives caught in Rome's grasp would gradually adopt Roman laws, philosophies, and social norms as survival strategies in their new environment. They often learned Latin, practiced Roman religious rituals, and, when possible, sought Roman citizenship as a means to elevate their status and improve prospects for themselves and their descendants. Roman citizenship was a coveted prize, symbolizing legal protection and civic privilege, and for some, it offered a path from slavery to social mobility. Yet, the journey to assimilation was fraught with tension. Captives had to balance the practicalities of survival and opportunity with the emotional and psychological challenges of preserving their cultural identities. This tension simmered beneath their daily lives, manifesting where personal history intersected with the demands of a foreign power that frequently required renunciation of their native pasts. The acts of cultural assimilation involved complex social negotiations that attracted both compliance and resistance from captives. Perhaps the most visible forms of assimilation were in public and religious life. Captives contributed to the rich tapestry of Roman religious practices as mythology and deities intertwined with local traditions, creating new expressions of faith that were both Roman and local. These syncretic practices illustrated cultural merging, yielding hybrid identities, reflective of shared beliefs and rituals. This blending offered a form of expression where personal and community identities could be maintained under an imposing Roman framework, whilst offering captives agency in shaping and preserving elements of their heritage. Likewise, elements of dress, cuisine, and festivals merged with Roman traditions, allowing cultural continuity within domains of personal life. However, these practices also held the paradox of simultaneous preservation and loss, sheltering captive identities whilst slowly diluting distinctiveness over generations. In areas where captive contributions were economically beneficial, such as craftsmanship, engineering, and agriculture, their skills and ingenuity were praised and appropriated, leading to reciprocal alterations within Roman perceptions and practices. This engagement fostered exchange, where captives occasionally revitalized Roman arts, architecture, and sciences, demonstrating the transformative potential of cross-cultural interactions. Nonetheless, their voices often remained unacknowledged, their innovations absorbed into the broader Roman paradigm with little recognition of their origin. These silent collaborations offered subtle yet powerful resistance narratives, injecting captive creativity into an empire that sought only to conquer. While this synthesis contributed to Rome's resilience and adaptability, it simultaneously invited questions about identity erosion, shedding light on the tension between integration and erasure within extensive imperial structures that sought homogeneity rather than individuality. These captive cultural exchanges served as reminders that imperial power inevitably invites reciprocal influence, however reluctantly or unequivocally. The narratives of captives engaged in cultural negotiation afford rich insights into broader philosophical questions about identity, belonging, and community. They illuminate the enduring tensions between individual expression and collective conformity, as the equilibrium of cultural survival often clung precariously to the whims of dominant powers. The moral and practical dilemmas faced by captives echo within modern debates about cultural identity, globalization, and the impacts of migration. Even today, the stories of those traversing borders reflect ancient dilemmas, questioning the sustainability of cultural identities as they interact with overwhelming systemic forces. Societies tasked with embracing diversity must confront how they maintain a coherent identity by accommodating hybrids of innovation and tradition, by granting space to voices within environments that could otherwise submerge them. The capacity for cultural elasticity affects how societies leverage these encounters, determine values, and understand themselves within frameworks that embrace plurality and inclusion. By pondering the fate of Roman captives, modern observers gain a perspective on the cyclical nature of cultural dialogue across millennia. This reflection illustrates the importance of cultural empathy and historical context in appreciating how the past interacts with evolving future norms. The legacies of Roman captives inspire conversations about the fusion of tradition and innovation within multicultural settings, spurring greater recognition of diversity's intrinsic value to societal advancement. As history consistently reveals, dialogues between cultures propel societies forward, cultivating shared futures amidst the maelstrom of complexities. Recognizing the lessons of cultural assimilation or erasure invites open engagement with communities, encouraging a dedication to preserving heritages while embracing the dialogues that shape and reshape civilizations. These narratives teach the value of understanding, empathy, and respect for the enduring narratives woven within the cultural fabric, prompting inquiries into personal heritage's role within broader societal contexts. Take a moment to reflect on this. Consider the delicate balance between cultural assimilation and preservation, and the ways in which history continues to impart its wisdom on current realities. Let these insights guide you into a peaceful reflection, where dreams explore the harmonies and tensions of a diverse world, fostering understanding that transcends time as you journey gently into a restful slumber. Imagine living between who you are and who others want you to be, a constant negotiation of self that is shaped by external boundaries and expectations. This was the psychological reality faced by many Roman prisoners of war, whose captivity was not solely about physical labor or confinement, but also about a deeper, more insidious form of captivity, the captivity of identity. captivity impacted their psychological well-being, reshaping personal identity in ways they couldn't have imagined. For these prisoners, their new reality was characterized by a daily confrontation with loss, not just of their freedom, but of the very threads that wove together their identities. Strangers in a strange land, they were thrust into roles that served the Empire's needs, roles that often suppressed the uniqueness of their personal histories and cultural backgrounds. This loss of identity was compounded by the struggle to maintain one's sense of self within a framework that valued compliance and servitude above individuality. Each day presented a psychological battle to reclaim fragments of who they once were, while navigating a world that constantly sought to redefine them according to its own terms. The challenge of captivity was as much about holding on to one's internal landscape as it was about fulfilling the physical demands placed by the Roman captors. The transformation of identity under such duress was not only the result of immediate circumstances, but also a cumulative effect of continuous exposure to a dominant culture that demanded adaptation. Roman society, with its expectations and norms, imposed a cultural narrative that captives were often coerced into adopting. The psychological pressures to conform were immense. The values, beliefs, and traditions that captives once cherished had to be reconciled with those of their new environment. They learned to speak the language of their oppressors, not only literally by adopting Latin, but metaphorically, as they had to internalize a Roman worldview to survive. Assimilating into Roman life required captives to suppress elements of their former selves in favor of adopting new identities shaped by their surroundings. This internal struggle can be likened to a form of cultural schizophrenia to state of being, where two conflicting identities vied for dominance, each pulling the individual in opposing directions. The tension between the desire to retain one's cultural roots and the need to adapt for survival painted a complex psychological landscape fraught with challenges and hardships. For the captive Romans, maintaining psychological resilience required immense inner strength and adaptability. Some captives found solace in forming communities with fellow prisoners, creating supportive networks that provided an echo of the structures they had lost. These communities offered a form of psychological refuge, preserving shared customs and histories that reinforced their identities even as they adapted to the demands of Roman society. Within these communities, captives could express their grief, celebrate their cultural traditions, and support each other through the arduous journey of adaptation. Often, this kinship became a source of resistance, an invisible yet formidable line of defense against the complete erosion of their identities. Solidarity among captives helped alleviate the pervasive sense of isolation and loss, offering a glimpse of the familiar amidst the alienation imposed by their captors. It was within these communal havens that many captives found the courage and inspiration to endure their plight, drawing on shared histories for strength and reassurance. In time, some captives managed to find ways to reconcile their dual identities, blending aspects of their native culture with Roman influences to create something new, a hybrid identity that embraced elements of both worlds. This synthesis required creativity and resilience, as these individuals crafted unique narratives that honored their past while acknowledging their present. Through this cultural alchemy, captives carved out a place for themselves within Roman society, gaining agency over their own lives despite the confines of their circumstances. These hybrid identities manifested in various forms, from art and literature to religious practices, as captives infused their heritage into the cultural tapestry of Rome. This fusion of identities not only enriched Roman culture, but also created a lasting legacy that transcended the boundaries of captivity. Through embracing elements of both their past and present, captives cultivated a sense of belonging that defied the limitations of their circumstances, fostering a space where personal authenticity could flourish amidst adversity. Yet, the psychological toll of prolonged captivity should not be underestimated, as the constant pressure to conform and adapt contributed to the erosion of self. For many captives, the struggle to maintain one's identity became an all-consuming endeavor, one that left lasting scars on their mental and emotional well-being. Depression, anxiety, and loss of self-worth were prevalent, as individuals grappled with the incessant demands of their new reality and the relentless pull of their former lives. The mental health challenges faced by Roman captives echo the experiences of countless individuals throughout history who have endured similar circumstances. Today, the plight of these ancient individuals serves as a poignant reminder of the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of identity, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges. Their stories highlight the importance of preserving one's sense of self amid adversity and the need for empathy and understanding towards those navigating the complexities of identity transformation. In the broader context, the experiences of Roman captives illuminate the timeless human struggle to maintain autonomy and agency over one's identity. They compel us to examine the way societal structures influence individual self-conception and invite reflection on the relationship between personal and collective identities. These ancient narratives offer a valuable lens through which we can explore modern constructs of identity and the psychological dynamics at play in diverse cultural environments. As we seek to understand the complexities of identity in our time, the stories of Roman captives resonate with enduring themes that continue to shape our understanding of the human experience. Their resilience speaks to the untiring quest for self-definition and the power of human ingenuity to forge new paths within familiar confines. By examining the psychological trajectories of Roman captives, we glean insights into the enduring themes of identity, transformation, and the human spirit's relentless pursuit of freedom, thereby inviting us to honor their legacy as we navigate the intricate dance of personal identity against the backdrop of societal currents. Take a moment to reflect on this intricate dance and consider its role in your own journey of self-discovery. Allow these insights to guide you into peaceful contemplation as you relax into the gentle embrace of slumber, where dreams hold the promise of newfound understanding and the enduring strength of identity. Imagine laws where who you are is less important than what you represent. Idea that your identity, once fixed and certain, is subject to permanent alteration by mere circumstance. This reflection looms large when considering the legal facets of Roman prisoners of war rituals, as the capture of these individuals was not just a matter of military necessity, but an act steeped in legal ramifications that extended far beyond the battlefield. The legal status of POWs in Rome defined what was permissible in their captivity, as they were enveloped into a system where law and order dictated every aspect of their lives. For the Romans, who were meticulous in constructing legal frameworks that outlined societal hierarchy, the status of captives was centrally important. This framework ensured that each captured individual was subject to a defined legal status, often as property or slaves, which dictated their role, treatment, and rights, more frequently, their lack thereof, within the fabric of Roman society. These legal structures functioned to solidify the power dynamics that maintained cohesion across the Roman Empire's vast territories by institutionalizing subjugation through the codification of war's outcomes. The procedural integration of powers into Roman life began the moment they were captured. Once military conflicts had concluded, an orderly assessment followed, turning those once defiant soldiers into catalogued commodities within the Roman domain. Legal rituals governed their fates, converting humanity into inventory in the eyes of Roman law. These legal processes stripped prisoners of their pasts, severing ties to prior sovereigns or affiliations, thus reassigning them as subjects now bound to the Roman state. Captives found themselves in legal limbo, transitioning from enemy combatants to the latest accessions within a predefined societal structure meant to benefit the victors. Through this ritualistic and bureaucratic transformation, war prisoners were stripped of their identities, blurred into anonymities whose origins ceased to preoccupy their captors. It was an erasure sanctioned by legal norms, constructed to amplify the victorious narrative of Roman imperialism. The law, in this regard, served as a bridge, enabling Rome to convert discord into structured subjugation, extending its reach across remotely conquered peoples inhabiting lands where the legions exercised control. While Roman law regulated much of captives' lives, it also dictated their potential for integration or elevation within society. Legal avenues allowed for certain inducements, granting pathways to citizenship or elevated status if a captive could demonstrate exceptional ability, loyalty, or assimilation over time. For instance, skilled craftsmen, scholars, or exceptional soldiers might secure a fortunate position by demonstrating their value and integrating into the societal framework. They navigated this arduous legal landscape at a juncture where compliance could lead to minimal elevation. Yet, this legal system predominantly preserved the rigorous stratification enforced by birth or circumstance, thereby reaffirming social hierarchies that cemented Roman authority. Thus, the Roman legal system, so proudly hailed by its citizens, offered paradoxical glimpses of both confinement and opportunity. Law, while often restricting captives through imposition, sometimes incorporated formal mechanisms for select individuals to earn transformation from servitude to citizenship through merit or decree. Such transitions, however, were exceptional and underscored the unequal balance that lay at the heart of the empire's legalistic approach. However, the complexity of legal constraints and societal roles was not lost on captives, who learned to navigate these restrictions through keen understanding and sometimes defiance. The resilience required to engage with this intricate legal web signified a claimant to one's history, a gesture of self-authorship amidst imposed roles. While Roman legal frameworks were designed for control, captives, under oppressive terms, occasionally discovered clever ways to exploit openings, manipulate loopholes, and orchestrate small acts of resistance. These acts, however subtle, demonstrated the potential of agency to counteract systemic bind amidst overwhelming dominance. In this dance of legality and individuality within Roman captivity, POWs exhibited a sly acumen towards survival, creating spaces for their agency. By utilizing laws meant to bind them, captives sometimes managed to retain droplets of their identities, ensuring they remained individuals within the confining blanket of enforced roles. Legal statutes offered solace to some, providing dimensions through which captives could reclaim agency, however small, in the face of restraint. Reflecting on the legal facets of Roman POW life uncovers a dynamic terrain, underscoring the enduring complexity of law as an instrument of both control and potential liberation. Their stories make palpable an enduring legacy of legalism, where institutions that dictate lives amplify both their benevolent and oppressive potential. Roman legal rituals around captivity illuminate both timelessly relevant truths and cautionary warnings that echo into contemporary dialogues about law, identity, and power. These reflections engage with concepts such as justice, human rights, and social mobility, prompting critical assessments and moral considerations that navigate the interstices of historical and contemporary narratives. The role of law in shaping perceptions, defining beings, and structuring communities resonates deeply today, where legal systems worldwide emerge as arbiters of societal values, governance, and personal freedoms affected by bureaucratic, legalistic paradigms. In evaluating these historical intricacies, we are prompted to consider broader implications about law and society. How does a legal framework reflect or cement systemic hierarchies? How does it uphold justice while sometimes stifling individuality and expression? The Roman context urges a reflection on how modern societies might better balance legal order and human dignity, harnessing laws in the service of equitable justice rather than strict imposition. As timeless as these inquiries remain, they challenge prevailing norms, inspiring approaches to governance and individuality that reflect ethical commitments to equity, inclusion, and resilience. Law, therefore, must be seen as a living entity, its task to adapt in concert with nuanced understandings of human dignity and identity, fostering communities where justice and compassion are not oppositional but symbiotic aims. Take a moment to reflect on these considerations. Envision a future where law navigates alongside humanity with empathy, fostering understanding and community within complex systems. Allow these reflections to ease you into a contemplative space, where restful slumber invites insights on liberty, legacy, and law's potential for true justice. Let these thoughts gently guide you into a peaceful state, where dreams explore the intricate balance of justice and human expression, inspiring futures bright with possibilities. Imagine finding strength in forgotten faith as everything else fades away. In the world of Roman prisoners of war, religion and spirituality offered POWs solace and strength amidst overwhelming adversity. Captivity, which stripped these individuals of their autonomy and subjected them to the whims of their captors, created a profound longing for control and understanding. In such a world, faith and spirituality emerged as bastions of hope, where logic and human desires fell short. For captives separated from familiar faces, places, and routines, faith became a resilient thread weaving through the fabric of their confined lives. Religion provided them with a sense of continuity, a beacon guiding them through the darkness of their new reality. It was often in the rituals, the prayers murmured in the silence of their moments alone, and the shared ceremonies with fellow captives that many prisoners of war found an anchor for their weary souls. These spiritual practices not only nurtured an essential connection to their cultural roots, but also fostered support and solidarity among those facing the same fate. Together, these acts of faith formed a spiritual kinship, a form of silent rebellion against the erasure of their identities and cultures. The role of religion and spirituality in the lives of Roman captives was not merely about retaining past traditions, rather, it was about adapting and infusing existing faiths to meet the emotional needs of their new realities. Captives often found themselves exposed to Roman religious practices, which through time influenced their spiritual perspectives. In some cases, this exposure led to the emergence of syncretic forms of worship, where elements of both Roman and native religious practices blended into a singular, personal tapestry of spirituality. These mixed faith traditions reflected synthesis rather than surrender, highlighting the captives' resilience in preserving their spirituality against encroaching forces. Even when compelled to participate in the religious activities of their captors, POWs found ways to maintain personal devotions, adapting familiar symbols and rituals to reflect their own beliefs. Through this alchemy of faiths, captives managed to quietly resist total assimilation and retain a semblance of their inner lives. These deliberate acts of spiritual preservation not only supported individual captives' emotional endurance, but also sowed the seeds of cultural continuity amid apparent subjugation. For some captives, embracing elements of Roman spirituality was a strategic decision that provided the dual benefit of adaptation and potential social integration. Conforming, at least outwardly, to the religious norms of their captors could facilitate better treatment and offer pathways to assimilation within Roman society, a tactical choice when survival itself was a delicate balance. Yet, these adaptations didn't equate to a wholehearted abandonment of their original beliefs. Instead, the process often enriched their spiritual life, leading captives to a deeper understanding of the commonalities shared across human experiences, values, and spiritual quests. This expanded consciousness, forged in the crucible of captivity, opened up new avenues for expressing faith that resonated deeply with personal truth. It highlights the intricacy of spiritual life, where adaptation to current circumstances led to a broader, more encompassing religious identity without entirely dissolving past connections. Captivity's pressure cooker environment demanded extraordinary psychological resources, prompting POWs to look to the divine for strength, patience, and endurance. The role of spirituality extended beyond consolidation of identity, offering balm for wounds that captivity inflicted on the soul. Many captives faced personal crises of faith initiated by their drastic change in circumstances testing the resolve of long-held beliefs and encouraging spiritual introspection far deeper than any voluntary pilgrimage might. Yet, even within this turbulence, faith bloomed, providing a critical channel for processing grief, loss, hope, and redemption. Stories of divine intervention, miraculous escapes, and spiritual visions punctuated their narrative celebrated occurrences that reinforced their trust in faith over fate. In a world where emotions teetered between despair and fleeting hopes, spirituality served as both chain and key, linking captives to enduring mysteries beyond physical confinement, while unlocking their capacity for resilience. Reflecting on the spiritual journeys of Roman POWs offers insights extending beyond historical inquiry, resonating with contemporary discussions about the importance of faith in adversity. Their narratives of devotion underscore the timelessness of spiritual seeking, reflecting a universal yearning for connection stretching across time and space. In exploring how captives managed spirituality, we appreciate how religion acted as a protective canopy, offering them a broader cosmological context to interpret their suffering and existence. This metaphorical shield allowed captives to navigate daily struggles with a sense of divine companionship and purpose, inviting them to partake in a larger narrative immeasurable by Roman scales. Captives harnessed the profound simplicity of faith, an unwavering belief that their existence was part of something greater, an eloquent protest against insignificance. In considering these narratives today, we are reminded of the key role spirituality plays in human resilience and community. With the world ever shifting under the constraints of crises, the legacy of Roman captives prompts reflection on how faith can ground us amidst uncertainty. It emphasizes the enduring importance of spiritual kinship, a shared journey, transcending adversity, compelling us to nurture connections within and between communities. Whether framed through organized religion or personal ethos, spirituality reinforces our understanding of identity, providing solace and a map to traverse life's chaotic landscapes. In embracing the multiplicity of faith-filled narratives, we draw from a collective wellspring, sustaining humanity through trials, forging connections that invite empathy, understanding, and peace. Take a moment to reflect on this. Visualize how faith, in its various manifestations, guides humanity across epochs, through moments of darkness into light. As you embrace these thoughts, feel the tranquility entering your mind, leading you into restful reflection. Allow the soothing essence of spirituality to accompany you on your journey into peaceful slumber, where dreams explore the boundless landscapes of the soul, fostering understanding and unity beyond the confines of history. Imagine your new home as a mere hollow shell of survival, a place defined not by comfort but by necessity, where every element of your environment is dictated by forces beyond your control. This was the stark reality for many Roman prisoners of war, as they were uprooted from familiar lands and thrust into the harsh, unyielding conditions of captivity. Housing and living conditions of Roman captives varied significantly, yet they shared a common thread of austerity and adjustment, with some finding surprising measures of comfort, while others endured severe deprivation. For captives thrust into the depths of Roman servitude, life began with disorienting transitions from what once was home to settings that reflected the empire's disparate geography and purpose. Their accommodations ranged from rudimentary shelters hastily constructed to service the abrupt demands of empire building, to stark dormitories that echoed with the whispers of collective pasts and shared destinies. Often constructed with pragmatic intent, these spaces prioritized functionality over the well-being of those confined within, serving as reminders of the transient and controlled existence captives came to know. Confined to such quarters, captives lived amid conditions that echoed their status conveniently located to centers of labor, agriculture, or military demand, each detail cementing their transformation into instruments of Roman ambition. For many captives, the journey into this world began in makeshift camps, temporary installations erected to process large influxes of defeated foes. Here, the conditions were often primitive, the surroundings crowded and harsh, reflecting the hasty circumstances of war's outcome. Captives would huddle under tents, relying on scant resources that barely catered to their needs, reliant on whatever spoils the captors deemed necessary. This phase, filled with uncertainty and hardship, marked the beginning of their integration into Roman society, laying bare the realities of their new roles and identities. Though temporary for most, this period entrenched a sense of impermanence and vulnerability that would follow them through subsequent transitions. As captives awaited transport to more permanent assignments throughout the empire, they existed in states of liminalitude to of place and out of time, as shifting objectives dictated the course of their sojourns. Those assigned to agricultural labor found themselves living in farmsteads or clustered in cottages located on sprawling estates far removed from urban life. While some might have found solace in the rhythmic predictability of the countryside, their housing arrangements were often meager, reflecting their subordinate status in the Roman social hierarchy. Clay or wattle and daub structures might provide basic shelter, susceptible to the whims of weather, offering little more than minimal protection against the elements. Here, captives were tasked with long hours of work tied to the cycles of planting and harvest, their lives dictated by agricultural rhythms and the empire's insistent appetite. Occasionally, especially skilled captives, or those in service to more benevolent masters, might achieve improved accommodations, slight upgrades that spoke to their industry, or proximity to those who held power. Yet, no matter the conditions, such lodgings were imbued with the pervasive undertones of control, ensuring that proximity to fields allowed for the unyielding productivity Rome required. Those integrated into Rome's urban centers fared differently, often housed in tiered apartments or cramped quarters, reflecting the dense, bustling vibrancy of city life. Within the crowded districts of Rome, captives and freedmen lived side by side, sharing space with the citizens they served, the boundaries between freedom and servitude fluctuating with each narrow street and crowded square. Despite the greater accessibility to Rome's amenities, housing remained Spartan, focused single-mindedly on essential needs. Living conditions varied by role and environment. Some might find themselves within grand villas as household slaves, under the watchful eyes of their Roman masters, positioned within reach of service calls at any hour. Conversely, those serving in factories or mills experienced accommodations tethered to their professions, where the demands of industry overshadowed comfort or leisure. The corridors of these workshops echoed with the sounds of production, tangibly linking the captives' lives to the heartbeat of Roman infrastructure and economic endeavor. For those compelled into more strenuous or dangerous work, such as in mines or quarries, living conditions were unforgiving, reflecting the perilous nature of their labor. Housed in barracks or cave-like shelters near the sites of their laborious toil, captives faced grueling environments where death and injury were constant companions. Such accommodations emphasized containment over protection, offering scant reprieve from the exhaustive demands that filled their days. The barracks, as unrelenting as the barren landscapes they inhabited, stood as testaments to the relentless exploitation that fed Rome's voracious demands for resources. Here, captives often dreamed of freedom amidst soot-stained visages, their dreams tempered by the reality of oppressive containment. The fragile, often oppressive nature of their living situations highlighted the fundamental realities of life as a captive under Roman rule. Captives forged subtle subcultures within these spaces, developing networks of support and solidarity among those sharing the same fate. Bonded by shared hardship, they navigated these spaces through camaraderie and fellowship, finding strength in collective resilience and resistance. Small gestures be it sharing a precious morsel of food, offering a listening ear, or participating in shared rituals, became the unspoken threads woven between them, developing communal ties amidst adversity. Through the creaking floors and dimly lit corridors of confinement, fellow captives crafted narratives of hope and perseverance that transcended the physical confines of their surroundings. Reflecting on the housing and living conditions of captives offers a window into the broader implications of captivity within empire dynamics, uncovering not just historical perspectives, but also insights into resilience, adaptation, and the quest for agency amid overwhelming constraint. These spaces, characterized by imperfection and deprivation, illuminate the enduring human spirit in its most raw and vulnerable forms, exhibiting adaptability against crushing hierarchy. In engaging with this history, we encounter fundamental narratives about dignity, community, and resourcefulness, exploring how those held under imperial thumbs wrote subversive survival stories beneath the weight of domination. Contemporary reflections on housing and human rights resonate through these historical accounts, reminding us of housing's intrinsic role in shaping destiny, freedom, and belonging. Take a moment to reflect on these stories, rooted in history, yet reflecting timeless truths about resilience and identity. Let these reflections settle within you as you find peace in their cadence, drifting gently into restful dreams, where adversity and strength weave the cloth of understanding and hope. Imagine life's true art discovered in enduring day-by-day battles, where survival transforms into a profound tapestry woven with resilience and fortitude. For the captives of Rome, the art of endurance was more than mere survival. It was a testament to their unyielding spirit, a response to seemingly insurmountable challenges. Captivity placed them in environments where their existence was dictated by external forces, each day testing their physical and psychological limits. This relentless backdrop forced them to find strength not only in their bodies, but also in their minds and souls. Endurance in this context transcends the physical realm, reaching deeply into the spiritual and emotional reservoirs of these individuals who faced every dawn with courage born from necessity. As they navigated their imposed lives within the Roman Empire, these captives crafted stories of remarkable endurance, their spirits unbroken amid hardship. Through quiet tenacity and resilience, they found ways to assert their presence and their humanity, even when stripped of autonomy and agency. The ability to endure became their art form, a silent affirmation of life, nurturing their identity and fostering hope for a future beyond the shadows of captivity, painting a vivid narrative that speaks to the timeless essence of human perseverance. The day-to-day existence of these captives was fraught with challenges that required a stoic acceptance of their reality, yet it also demanded the ingenuity to adapt to constantly shifting circumstances. Their survival strategy often involved developing routines that provided structure and purpose, even when imposed from the outside. Some embraced the rhythm of their labor, finding ways to bring meaning to tasks that seemed tedious and unending. This perspective of endurance allowed them to transform burdens into pathways of creativity, resilience, and inner growth. The labor that broke their bodies also strengthened their resolve each ordeal, a testament to their capacity for survival and endurance. Many captives sought solace in small reprieves, fragments of normalcy within the fractured narratives of their lives. Whether shared laughter with fellow captives, quiet moments of contemplation, or fleeting glimpses of beauty in mundane details, these experiences fostered their ability to endure, offering glimpses of self amidst overwhelming external control. This art of living, cultivated within constraint, was a nuanced dance between submission and resistance, where each deliberate action became a defiant statement of continuity and identity. In the nuanced world of Roman captivity, the need to endure also meant anticipating change and managing expectations within an ever-evolving landscape of power and subjugation. Captives, though bound by circumstance, became adept at reading their environment and negotiating boundaries to secure the best possible outcomes in a world of limited choices. Adapting required learning how to observe subtle shifts in the moods of their masters, understanding the powers that governed their lives, while also seeking out slivers of autonomy through their actions. This strategic awareness encouraged them to forge alliances, develop skills, and maintain relevance in ways that might sway the balance of their everyday experiences in favor of the humane over the harsh. The artistry of endurance, therefore, lay in the ability to continuously navigate between yielding to the current's force and steering towards calculated agency when opportunities arose. This resilience was a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure, thriving on hope and the potential for agency, even when set against considerable constraints. Their endurance was both pragmatic and philosophical, integrating mindful acceptance with the yearning for liberation and dignity. The enduring struggle of Roman captives invites reflection on broader philosophical themes encircling human tenacity, the enduring interplay between fate and free will, resistance and acceptance, suffering and transcendence. In their stories, we find evidence of how adversity sharpens insight, teaching implicitly that endurance is not passive but an action, an act of defiance against a world intent on consumption and uniformity. Captivity created conditions ripe for contemplation and introspection, where captives accustomed to deprivation and demands upon their time and skills developed a profound understanding of themselves and the forces shaping their lives. Their endurance became an exquisite expression of existential understanding, transcending survival to reach towards meaning as they braced against the tumultuous forces of conquest and control. This narrative echoes throughout history, resonating in oppressed communities and individuals bound by struggles of varying nature, summoning an enduring dialogue on human rights, justice, and the dignity that no captivity can erase. Reflecting on the art of endurance of Roman captives imparts valuable insights into present-day discourse on resilience and well-being. In today's fast-paced world, where challenges manifest in myriad forms, personal, environmental, or societal, understanding endurance as an art that fosters spiritual and emotional growth is a critical lesson. Recognizing the power of enduring while finding meaning encourages a reclaiming of agency over one's narrative, offering paths toward healing and future building, even amidst adversities. The historical lessons from Roman captives show that endurance is never static. It evolves with us, inviting adaptive and proactive responses to the multifaceted challenges of life. The vision of enduring cultivated by these captives emphasizes community, solidarity, and communion with the self, while highlighting the need for introspection and the quiet courage that endures past defeat. It transforms their lived experiences into timeless teachings that anchor modern quests for empowerment and enlightenment in a world demanding resilience in the face of unforeseen trials. As we contemplate the art of endurance, our reflections ripple into the spaces of our lives where we envision the contours of transformation. Take a moment to let these lessons of endurance permeate your thoughts, melding strength with compassion as you find peace in their wisdom. As you relax into peaceful contemplation, allow these narratives to weave their way through your consciousness, crafting dreams rich with resilience and hope. Embrace this space where enduring strength marries graceful acceptance, paving the way towards an empowered and truly liberated spirit.